Hey there, Diane Polly here again this morning. And if this is your first time following me, then all you need to know is I call myself a client conversationalist. And what that simply is it's someone who, in my case, teaches other women entrepreneurs online how to share their story out loud so they can have really, really powerful conversations with their ideal clients. Because I believe in the power of conversations and relationships. And frankly, I think it's a lost art form, in this digital era that we're operating in. And I'm bringing it back. So, if you've been following along, I filmed a few videos this week as part of my little video journaling project talking about vulnerability and putting my voice out there and bringing my message more to the forefront so you can understand what I'm about and what I teach. And over the past few days, I've talked about ideal clients and what I personally believe those are simply extensions of who you are, someone who's just a few steps behind you at this point A, and your only goal is to help bring them to this point B where you are right now, because that is enough for them. I've also talked about vulnerability, and that's one of my big words. And yesterday I filmed a video talking about how to share strategically but vulnerably at the same time, which is one of my personal life mottos that I've learned, because I used to word vomit all over everybody when I was telling my story, and I was like, oh my God, this happened to me, and then that happened to me, because I wanted something in return. I didn't realize it at the time, but later on I did. I wanted confirmation or affirmation or, oh my God, Diane, I'm so sorry for you. And then I learned, it took me a while, but then I said, that's not helping anybody. And, my heart is really to be of service. And I mean, you learn a lot about yourself. It's personal development going into business for yourself. I learned that I was sharing vulnerably, but I wasn't doing anyone any good. So I started, unhinging this concept of being strategic about it. And then I learned, and I filmed in the video yesterday, I started learning that I need to share my lessons, because it wasn't about me at that point. It was about sharing, why did I go through this? To meet someone where they are, an ideal client, someone just like me, and to say, hey, I want to meet you where you are, not sympathize with you, but empathize. Show you that a part of my story relates to what you're going through now, and I want to share what I learned from that. So hopefully you can take some of those lessons and get to where I am much faster than it took me, so you can fast forward through all the speed bumps I had to go through. And maybe that's why I had to do it, to be a leader for you now. So that's the general concept of what I teach, and it's so powerful that way because you realize how important and worthy your story is. And on that note, just a little something I wanted to talk about today. It's really cool. I had somebody message me yesterday on Facebook. You know who you are, lady. Thank you. And it's kind of what happens when you build relationships online and you craft powerful ways of conversing and sharing your story. It starts to attract people and they start to connect with you and they want to know more. So that's what I'm teaching you. I had this one lovely woman contact me and she was asking me about the difference between visibility and vulnerability. And if you are a fellow woman entrepreneur listening right now, you'll know that there are certain topics that are kind of prevalent in the online world, the online sphere. And, visibility is one of them. A lot of people are saying you got to get yourself out there. You got to be seen. You got to, have people know who you are. And to a certain extent, I agree with that. But I always check my moral compass with all of these topics. And for me, I believe if you don't know who you are and you're not grounded in your message and you don't know who you're talking to, that visibility is going to do absolutely nothing for you. Because I rebranded my business at the beginning of this year in January to start talking about voice and messaging and only work with women. I was not doing any of this beforehand in my old business, and I did get visible. I collaborated, I connected with big name people, I wrote a lot of guest posts, I created a newsletter, I had a website, but none of it connected because I was still figuring out who I was. I was not clear on my message at all, and I really wasn't sure about who I was working with. So every piece I had out there online, yeah, people knew my name, but they really were confused on what I was doing. Nothing I did was converting, and I was just like, what the F am I doing? And that's the problem most of us face, and hence why I rebranded. I had to go back to basics. Sometimes we want to fast forward and just get the big money and the big results and all that stuff because it's so tempting, but we don't realize that if we forsake the process, the building process and the groundwork, we're going to get to a point where it all falls down. And that's what happened to me. So, I really believe in building the framework and the groundwork of your messaging. So, when I was chatting with this lady about visibility and vulnerability, it's okay to get visible, but you just need to be sure you're grounded. You need to be sure of three things: who you are, who you're talking to, and what your message is. Because who you are and who you're talking to, that forms a relationship. And how does that relationship grow? Through your message, through conversations. That's why all of this stuff is so important. And to give you a little example of what I mean, I posted on my personal Facebook wall. I shouldn't even have a public business page because all I do is post on my personal wall. A message yesterday sharing a little bit more about my story because I've had lots of different life experiences that I've gone through, and they've each taught me a lesson. And I wanted to show a tangible example of how to share your story strategically but vulnerably. So I'm going to read that to you out loud if you're listening and you're like, okay, this all makes sense, Diane, but how do I know what to share in my story and how to make it not come from a me place but connect with somebody else and help them? So I will give you an example of that. And, it's always important to check yourself that you're only sharing because you're seeing that it's someone like you're talking to who's going through something similar that you went through. So it's like, oh, that's a perfect point to bring up what happened to me because it won't allow me to sympathize, but I can empathize with them. I can get what they're going through. I can meet them where they are. And then I'm not at that point anymore. So even though they're at point A, I can say, hey, I'm at this point B now. And it took me a long time to get here. But if you allow me, I'd love to teach you some of my lessons that got me here so you can get here faster. And that's how I teach my clients to build abundant businesses that infuse all of them and their heart and soul into what they're doing. Because whether you're starting out from scratch or rebranding, I think we have this desire and this need to build authentic relationships and really infuse who we are. And that's how you create an abundant business and life. It's infusing that authenticity, that vulnerability into your story because you're packaging up your lessons learned and talking to someone like you. That's a life transformation, which is absolutely amazing. So on that note, let me read to you an example of what sharing your lessons learned looks like. So what I wrote was, over the past year, I've shared bits and pieces of my story out loud, sprinkled here and there on various social media channels and guest post outlets. So you may have a fragmented view of who I am right now. The synopsis: life has shaped me and hardships have taught me about resilience, and that character is when you decide to get back up. So when I was young, I lost my mom, and what that taught me was it taught me about empathy and how to really meet others where they are and how grief is a normal part of life. It's a normal life process. When I was young, I also dealt with a lot of verbal abuse, and what that taught me is, and I'm still learning this, is defining the power of my own voice and really understanding the relevance and the power, the understated power of good words and putting them out there. When I was going through college, I had to put myself through my last year of college, and I had to get a few jobs, and that taught me a lot about work ethic, and that if I put my heart and mind to something, I want something bad enough, I can find ways to achieve it. And then I did what every entrepreneur tends to do. I quit my cushiony corporate job, and it taught me that there's so much more to life than a paycheck, and it's not worth it when you're going to a place every day that's making you physically ill. And then I started my own business, and I rebranded it and kind of started another one. But what that taught me is that I could define my life and my time on my own terms, and that I am capable of making an income doing something that I love. And now I love what I'm doing. And then the aspect of traveling too. My boyfriend and I were lucky enough to find the time to be able to go to Southeast Asia last year and South America this year. Actually, we came back a few weeks ago, and it's just taught me that the world is so big, and it's so nice to see yourself as a finite piece of something so infinite, and to immerse yourself in different cultures and stories, and it's just really transformational. I've also in my life had lots of failed relationships, and what those taught me is that I'm not a broken piece looking for another broken piece. It taught me to go on a journey and figuring out how to love me, all of myself, and to become whole. And then, to appreciate it when I could find somebody I could partner with. And thankfully, I have love in my life now, and I can appreciate that healthy type of relationship. And, having faith. My journey with faith is a long one, but what that has taught me is that life isn't smooth sailing, that there will always be ups and downs, but that no one can ever take away my internal joy. And those are just some of my lessons learned. And I believe being vulnerable in this way means opening up, but sharing from your scars so that you can help someone else, someone just like you. So that's what I wrote yesterday, and I wanted to share that with you today so you could get to know me a little bit more and understand the power of sharing your lessons learned. And on that note, I would love for you to comment, connect with me, and share with me some of your lessons learned, and ask me questions about, sharing strategically but vulnerably, because this is a really important topic. And I'm excited because I'm creating a bunch of new things that are coming, a new site, new ways to connect with me, a brand new Facebook group, new little free goodies I'm creating online. So if this is speaking to you, if for the first time you're saying, yes, someone gets me, and this is exactly how I want to build a business and a life, around my story and around being a leader and teaching somebody else, all of my lessons, then I'd love for you to connect with me, and stay tuned, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I can't wait to connect with you soon. See you next week.